All right, so we're gonna make buttons. So I invite you guys to open up a new sketch. Hopefully you got that going on. And I'm gonna make a new sketch right here. Here we go. So we're gonna do all of our coding in active mode sketches, by the way. So that means we're gonna have a void setup and void draw. Set up. And this is gonna take a bit of getting used to. I just always start my projects like this. Type in void setup, void draw, put the braces in, close the braces. Don't trust yourself to close the brace later, by the way. That's not. It might happen, but it might not. So just close your brace as soon as you open it. It's good advice. What size should we make our program today, everybody? Doesn't really matter. What do you want to do? 800 by 600? Sure. Sounds good. It doesn't really matter what the size is. You can choose your own size if you want, but make it at least that size. And then we're going to draw some buttons. We're going to start with circular buttons. You could make rectangular buttons, but it turns out the math behind making a circular button clickable is a little bit simpler than making a rectangular button clickable. So we're going to take a look at that math. So let's just draw a circle that's going to represent a button. I'm going to draw, I don't know, what color button? Red? Red's a good button, right? Panic button, like hit the red button kind of thing. So I'm going to make a red button. I'm going to put background white right now, just so I have a white background to fill. And then I'll do an ellipse for a button. I'll put a little comment right above it maybe. Here's my red button. I'll put it at the top of the screen, but like maybe centered. So what would be a good set of coordinates for having our red button at sort of the top center of this screen that's 800 by 600? What do you think? Yeah, that'd be good. So 400 would be 400, 300 would be the center. That's not. We'll move it up in a second. What radius? We'll do 100 for the diameter. I mean, and I'll fill that with red because this is gonna be a red button. So I'll do a fill. 255.00 would be a nice red color. Quite a bright red. Maybe I'll do a little bit darker red. 100.00 would be a scarlet. There we go. I think I'm going to move mine up a bit. If I wanted to make it go up higher, I'm going to just reduce or make my y coordinate lower, which is really the opposite of how you're used to doing it in math, but there we are. I'll do like maybe 150. There's our button up here. Okay, so I'll let you guys just type that down and get where we're at. So our goal here is going to be to teach processing to figure out if the mouse is inside of that circle. And I'm going to show you a little demonstration that is a processing program, but will illustrate what's happening in processing. It's going to show you where the mouse is, and it's also going to do some math for us. And we're going to see how to do that math in a minute. But I'm going to show you a program that will sort of simulate what's going on. It's like a zoomed-in version of that button. I think it's this one here. So this is not what we're going to create, but it will illustrate what's going on. So the way that we're going to figure out if our mouse is touching the circle is going to be taking a look at the circle and comparing the circle center, or sorry, the radius of the circle to the distance of the center of the circle to the mouse pointer. That's how we're going to think about, like, is the mouse inside the circle? So watch, I'm going to move the mouse around and see that green line? That green line obviously is connecting the center of the circle to the mouse, wherever it goes. And the number that currently says 251.794, that's the distance in pixels from the mouse to the center. So as I move it around, just like note its values. And those are all the values of the distance that are representing the mouse outside of the circle. But when the mouse goes inside of the circle, like check out all those possible values. Can I get it exactly to 0? No, I'm giving up. Yeah, there we go. Nice. But like other values are possible too, right? Like I'm getting all sorts of values. So what do you think? What's the difference between values that are inside of the circle versus values that are outside the circle? Or what would be like the border between those two groups of values? What do you think? Yeah, Nico. Say it again, sorry, I couldn't hear. Yeah, or less. So anytime my mouse is inside of the circle, it's like 150 is like the maximum distance, right? And I can get all the way up to 148. That's still inside the circle. But if I get to 150 or higher, then I'm outside of the circle. I guess I'm on the stroke. Technically, the stroke is drawn outside of the circle. You can account for the stroke if you want to. I have a stroke weight of 4, I believe it is. So it'll go out like by 2 pixels on either side. So there I am, right on the edge, and I've gone beyond, right? So if you want to check if your mouse is inside of a circle to make that circle clickable, to make it a button, then you can compare the distance between the mouse pointer and the center of the circle with the radius of the circle. If it's less than the radius, your mouse is touching the circle. Any questions about that? Like the general game plan of how we're going to do that? Definitely how you code that is a good question. We'll get into that. But any questions about how we're going to do, like the plan? Are you guys okay with it? Yeah? Okay, I guess we'll try. So I guess we have to figure out how do you measure distances and how do you get the mouse's coordinates. It's sort of going to be our job. And what we'll do for our program that we have, where's my code? This little program we wrote with our red button. What I like to do is make it so that maybe when my mouse moves over the button, we could change its color to be like a brighter red. It kind of lights up. If you took IT last year, we called this making a button tactile, which is a user experience or UX terminology for making it known to the user what's clickable. If you've ever used a program with a mouse, which is pretty much, I'm sure, everybody, you'll notice that actually all programs already do this. For example, in processing, like if I put my mouse over the stop button, it tells me I'm able to click it because it says stop. If I move over the play, it tells me by changing the word to run. There's all sorts of things that are clickable because my mouse goes over it and things change. So that's in user interface. There's a whole branch of computer science called user experience, UX. And in that whole branch, that's referred to as making buttons tactile, giving a person feedback to know that they can interact with that thing. So we'll make our circle tactile to give the user the confidence that I'm able to, it's not just some random circle, it's a clickable circle because it'll light up when our mouse goes over it. So how are we going to do that? So basically, this is the wrong program. We'll get that out of here. There we go. So what we're going to do is we are going to, this is not the one I wanted either. Where are we? Hey. Yeah. There we go. Oh, that's the finished product that I just did with my other class. Hold on. Gotta be this one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what we'd like to do then is not just always fill with dark red, but make a choice. Either fill with bright red if the mouse is touching the circle, or if it's not touching the circle, fill with dark red. We want to make a choice. What structure in processing allows us to make a choice? Reese, an if statement. You got it. Yeah, for sure. So we're going to make an if statement, and we're going to make a new kind of if statement. An if statement, as we used it in the animation project, just decides, do we run a piece of code or not? Do we teleport our mountain back to the beginning or not? We're going to make an if-else statement today, which allows us to choose one of two possibilities. Either we do one thing or we do another based on the condition. So we're either going to fill with dark red or fill with bright red. So, and then we'll see how we can measure distances as well. So check it out. I'm going to, I think just for clarity's sake, I'm going to delete what I have here and just kind of make some space in here where I'm going to be coding my if statement up here. So I'm going to have an if statement, and I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to leave it blank for now. But this question is basically going to be if the mouse is touching the circle. This will obviously not be the way it works. So I'm just going to put it up there just to think about it. We'll come back to that in a second. If it is, like it's going to say error, error, that's okay. I'm happy ignoring the errors for now. If it is touching the circle, if the answer is yes, then the code inside the if statement will run, right? So I'll fill with bright red, 25500. So I could make another if statement. I'm not going to ultimately, just spoilers, just so you know. I could make another if statement, say if the mouse is not touching the circle, whatever math I choose to do there. But you know what? That's kind of a lot of extra work. What I could do instead of saying that, I can just say else. So I'll have kind of two possibilities. If this condition is true, which is not finished yet, but when there's a condition there, if that condition turns out to be true, it'll run this code, but if it's not, it'll run this code in here. So if I'm not touching the circle, I want to fill with the dark color again. See how it's making a choice between one of two options? That's what the if-else is for. And in the future, we'll make even larger chains to choose between 3 or 10 or a million options. We probably won't do a million. But maybe 10 might be a thing we do. And so that's the story. The only thing we're missing is the condition. What's this condition supposed to look like? How do we know if we're touching the circle? So again, we want to compare the distance from the center of the circle to the mouse pointer to the radius. If it's less than the radius, then the answer is yes, we are touching the circle. So how do we do that? So it turns out there's a function that will check distances between 2 points. It's called the Dist function. If you're taking Math 10 this year, you're actually going to learn the math behind it. There's like a whole thing in a graph where you're given 2 points and you use this like square root of the sum of squares thing that you calculate. But you don't have to do that because the Dist function is built in. It's actually just Pythagorean theorem, to be honest. But you don't even have to, if I said the word Pythagoras and anyone was like, oh no, why is that getting into my class? Don't worry, the Dist function does all that math for you. You just got to give 2 points, an x and y point of the start of the line and an x and y point that's the end of the line, and it will calculate that distance for you. And it's called Dist. Dist for distance. Dist. And it takes 4 parameters. And notice I'm putting it in my if statement, just in case anyone doesn't see that. I'm sticking my dist in my if. So dist takes 4 numbers. It's going to be the x and y of the center of the circle, and then the x and y of the mouse. So think about this. What's the x and y of the center of our circle? That's our button. Just looking on the screen there. What's the center of it? Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's right here. It's the 400 and 150. That's the center of my circle. So I'm going to say the distance between the center of the circle, 400 and 150. And then how do you describe the mouse coordinates? Turns out there's these built-in variables that are constantly refreshed with the coordinates of the mouse. And they are called mouse X with a capital X and mouse Y with a capital Y. And then I'm going to close the parenthesis, and that is the Dist function there. So that is calculating the distance between the two things. It still says there's an error, and it might be a weird error. It says something about type mismatch, float, Boolean, and that's kind of confusing. But what it's saying is this isn't a condition. It's not a question. It's just a number. It's just an answer. It's like 12 kilometers or something. It's not kilometers. 100 pixels. It's just a number. It's not a question. What we want to ask is that distance, whatever it is, less than the radius? So we have to go a little bit further. We have to say, is this distance less than our radius? And what's our radius of our circle? 50, yeah, because that's our diameter, right? We say if it's less than 50. That's a pretty fancy if statement, hey? So it's saying if the distance between the center of the circle and the mouse is less than 50, fill the color with bright red. Else, if it's not less than 50, fill it with dark red. And then it draws a circle. Let's run it and see if it works. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, it worked. So that was the most dramatic ellipse coloring in history. Yeah, it's good, right? And this is what's called making a button tactile, so that it feeds off. If go play a PC game, or I guess just a game on a computer that uses a mouse, and just experience all the things that glow when you move it around. Or Windows, right now, you can move your mouse around the icons and the start menu. It glows when your mouse goes over it. The minimize button, they all do that kind of thing. This is fairly simple, compared to the buttons that are like actual PNGs and other things in games, but that's sort of how you do it. Now, some people may not have been successful just now, so for those of you who didn't get this to work, just give me 1 second. I'll come around and take a look, but I'm going to give everyone a task before we go much further. I'm going to ask everybody to make 2 more buttons. Make a green button that's in the middle and a blue button that's on the bottom, and make them also tactile. So when you mouse over them, they go from dark green to bright green, or dark blue to bright blue. And in doing that, you're going to be sort of testing your understanding of this framework, this kind of pattern of, checking the mouse, drawing the circle. They'll be in different places, so your dist function is going to change, your ellipses are going to change, the colors are going to change, but the structure will be quite similar for all of them. So go ahead and give that a try. After you've done that, we're going to make them clickable, but that will be another thing we'll have to talk about. So I'm going to just stop the recording so that this YouTube video isn't enormously long, and come and help those of you who got stuck. Where's my stop? There we go. Bye.